So you may be curious about joining the military and want to know what kind of benefits it could bring you. Well, I just want to share my story with you, and hopefully, you can get something out of this story and make that decision, right? Now you have to remember, this is back when I had just turned 20, all throughout my high school, I thought I was going to go in the military. That was what I wanted to achieve, right? That was what I was going to do as soon as I got out of high school. Then as soon as I got out of high school, 9/11 happened, and I was afraid to join the military. And it took me one particular job, right? Now you have to remember, I was jumping from different job to different job, and I really didn't know what I was going to do, right? I did do some college, and it just became overwhelming, working full time and doing college full time. It was just too much. So I got out of college and I just tried to work, 2-3 different jobs, and it just seemed like a never ending, onslaught of work, and I will never get ahead. And so I ended up, leaving where I was. At the time I was in Southern California. I ended up moving up to upstate New York and taking a position doing truck installation, right? Now you have to believe that it was about as exciting as it sounds, because that's exactly what it was just cutting cardboard all day for 8 hours straight, sometimes 12 hours, right? Just to make a couple $100. And I was at the point where I did not want to do this. This was, this isn't where I want my life to be, right? I had such bigger dreams than to be sitting doing this job and then only being promoted to maybe like a manager, only earning a couple extra dollars. And, that being one of the best jobs where I was, right? Because you have to remember that where I was at was a very small town, and so it was either you worked there or you worked at the pharmaceutical company, and the pharmaceutical company was something I couldn't get in, right? I tried multiple times, and it was just one of those jobs like you had to know somebody to get in, right? So I was at that point, do I go back to college and try to tackle, the full college experience plus having a full-time job? And I really didn't know what to do, and I know it would take too much time, and I wanted to do something, right? I wanted to get a skill as soon as possible, and I still wanted to travel the world. And so again, I resorted back to my family. My family always told me to go in the military, and I was like, well, I might as well give it a shot. And at that point, before going up to all this stuff, I wanted to be a sniper in the Marine Corps. That was what I wanted to do, right? I was like, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna be in all the movies, and that's what they do, and I was so excited. And then, it just took my father to tell me, now you have to remember, we're in upstate New York. It is freezing cold outside. You have, ice storms. This is how bad it gets up there. And he told me, okay, you wanna be a sniper? You go out there on that back log in the woods, and you sit there in the snow, and then I will come get you in a couple days. And as soon as he told me that, I was like, yep, that's not the job I want. I can be hardcore, but I don't want to be doing that for the rest of my life either, right? And so the biggest thing was I wanted a career in the military that I could come out, right? A particular career that I could use on the outside world, because I didn't know how long I wanted to stay in the military, right? I wanted to get a good skill that I could use on the outside. So it came down to this. My family told me either I should go in the Navy or join the Air Force. And at the time, I wasn't really sure. I had an uncle that was in the Air Force, and he told me, what, you should really just join the Air Force. He said, this is the best branch. You want to get in the Air Force, and if you're just looking for a skill, you want to be corporate, this is what you want, And so I ended up talking to an Air Force recruiter, and at the time it was almost Christmas, right? And I wasn't quite sure, should I go before Christmas and then spend Christmas in boot camp? And that was just not something I wanted to do, right? So I waited, right? I did my tests. I went and took my ASVAB test and everything to see where I would score, and I got to pick from a bunch of different jobs. and I picked a skill that I wanted, and that was, telecommunications. So I was told that I could, go now, and then I could finish boot camp, and I would sit a while until school started. I was like, well, I'll just wait, right? I'll wait till after, the holidays, and then I'll go to boot camp, and that way it would just easy transition, from boot camp into my tech school. And so that's what I did, right? And I ended up going in February of 2002, and it was a challenge, right? It's not your family will tell you a bunch of things, or people that have been in will tell you a bunch of things about how, boot camp was rough. And the first couple nights you're like, what did I just do? Why did I join the military? It's because you're not used to it, right? This is something you're not used to. You're not used to, having such a dramatic change in life. The world will smack you in the face, right? But you get that as soon as you come in the military. You get that smack in the face plus more, and you go through boot camp, right? And boot camp isn't bad at all. You just gotta get through it, right? Just like sucking it up for a couple weeks, you get through it, and then you're perfectly fine. And then you go to tech school. So after boot camp, you go through tech school, right? And I was going through a couple different tech schools because I had to learn basic electronics, I had to learn, antenna school, and then I also had to learn cabling school. And so I was kind of all over the place and enjoying it, right? Like the bonds you make with the people that you go through class and stuff is just, some of the best friendships you ever make, right? And by far, right, any friendship I've had throughout my life has not been as tight as it has in the military. You make such great friendships because you guys go through a lot than the normal person on the outside would, right? And you learn the skills, you learn so much. So going through these different schools, I was learning a ton. It seemed overwhelming at times, yes, but it was fun, right? You still had fun while you were doing it, and everybody was in the same boat as you, so it wasn't so bad. So that's why you relied heavily on the people you were working with, right? Your battle buddies, right? And you go through tech school, and then you get that first station, and that's just everybody's talking about, ooh, where do you want to be stationed? Where do you want to be stationed? And so you come up with this dream list of where you want to go. And, my first thing was, I just want to go overseas. I wanted to go explore the world. And so, I was lucky. I was able to get a position that was overseas, and I loved it, right? I was a position where I felt like I never believed I would want to go there, right? And I did, and I loved it, right? There was so many times where, I got to see all parts of the world that were just amazing, and I got to do it with some great people, right? And so if you were the kind of person that is really curious about the military, right, you have to understand that the military, yes, it's rough initially, but you don't have to worry about any of that. That's only temporary, right? You only last, a couple of weeks in boot camp, and then you'll go on to your tech school, and you'll learn the skills that you want to learn, right? And then you get to travel the world, right? Where else can you find a position where you learn great skills? Not only do you learn the skills of your job that you want, but you learn so many additional skills, right? You learn all different kinds of admin skills, you learn all different kinds of, management skills, and you learn all these things in one position, where on the outside it's much more isolated, right? Where you learn specific jobs, and that's your only job, where in the military it's not that way. You learn multiple different jobs, and you're tackling multiple different things, and you learn to deal with stress, you learn to deal with situations. And that's one thing that is absolutely remarkable about the military, is I would never take that away. I enjoyed the military thoroughly. Like I said, I got to see the world. I got to create really good friendships. I got to, get a skill that I always wanted, and I was able to go back to college eventually, right? Eventually, after I did get out of the military, I was able to use my GI Bill and go back to college, and I got my degree. And there's been so many good things about the military, right? There's some people that don't like it, and to each their own, right? But I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it's a challenge, right? If you like a challenge and you like all these different things, yes, they come with hard work, but everybody else working alongside you is working just as hard, right? And so you create those fantastic friendships that, you know, they last a lifetime. Like, I have so many, you know, battle buddies out there that, like, if I called them up, they would be there, or I would be there, like, and we could not have talked for like years, right? This is the best thing about the military, is you have those bonds with those people and you go through so much. Typically because, you know, you're in a lot of these different areas around the world where, you know, you're isolated and that's all you have is that person, and they're like family, right? So if you're contemplating about going in, I must say that, especially if you don't know what's going on in your life, right? If you feel like you have no control over your life, if you feel like you're stuck, if you feel like, you know, you don't want to go back to college, whatever the case may be, I would highly suggest that you should go in the military. You know, find a branch that works for you, find a branch that holds, you know, whatever job or position you want, and then go for it, because you will get the experience of a lifetime. And I can guarantee that if you work hard, you will get so much more, right? And so much more experiences, especially if someone you haven't been able to travel or anything. You get all that stuff, and you know, the benefits are great. You know, I can go get a VA loan if I wanted to for a house with no money down. There's so many benefits that it's almost kind of crazy not to go in, right? So just know it is your choice, but know that it is not a bad choice at all. You won't regret anything. Don't feel like you're missing out. There, you know, there was a lot of times when I even came back from the military and I found a lot of my old high school friends, you know, doing the same old thing, where I had done so much, right? I had seen the world, I had experienced so much, I had all these skills, I was leading people, you know, and a lot of my friends were still going through college and they haven't even had their first job, you know, and I was a manager of people already by that point. So it's amazing and well worth it. So if you guys like this video, please smash that like button, and until next time, I will see you guys later.